Today on Alistair Art, we're going to look at the art of Gustav Klimt, and we're going to be looking at his designs and patterns. Gustav was born way back on July 14th, 1862, in part of the Austrian Empire. It was a small town near Vienna, Austria, today. He was one of 7 kids. He had 2 brothers and 4 sisters. All 3 of the brothers did show different artistic talents. Around the age of 14, he started to go to an actual art school. Klimt received different awards and a lot of notoriety by 1888. 4 years later, he ended up losing both his father and one of his brothers, and he basically became financially responsible for both families, which made him kind of change some of the things that he might have been doing artistically. In the early 1890s, Gustav met Emil Louis Flug, an Austrian fashion designer, that he would end up spending the rest of his life with. Klimt did paint in a lot of different styles. He painted things like landscapes, he painted portraits, started out with very realistic and started to evolve his art to show more expression in his art. His most famous phase was his golden phase. During this period of art, he would use gold leaf and lots of patterns that you would find on different things like fabrics. Remember, Emil was a fashion designer, so he would incorporate a lot of different patterns and things you would see in fabrics into his art. Gustav died on February 6th, 1918. Sadly, not all of his works have survived. Some of his artwork was actually stolen during World War II. Some of his artwork was actually destroyed by the retreating Nazis at the end of World War II, so some of his paintings actually ended up getting burned. Many of his paintings were actually stolen, and they ended up having to be recovered after World War II had ended. One of his artworks to sell for the most amount of money at auction was this one of Adele Bloch-Bauer, which sold for $135 million in 2006. This painting was actually portrayed in a film about this painting and the niece of Adele Bloch-Bauer trying to get her family's painting back. Today we're going to be making our own Gustav Klimt inspired art using patterns. We're going to be mostly focusing on the portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer from 1907. Here are a few different examples of different materials you can use to create it, like marker, colored pencil, or crayon. The main materials that you're going to have for this is pencil and paper. If you have those things, you can do the project. Everything else is just icing on the cake. Now, I am going to be using both a photograph and a magazine. You can use those. If you are going to be using those to cut out your face and possible hands, then what you're going to need is scissors and glue so that you can cut out your picture and glue it down. I'm also going to be using a black marker to help make my lines stand out a little bit better. And then I've shown here in blue different ideas for ways that you can use to do color. Things like markers, Sharpies, crayons, watercolor paints, colored pencils. It's really up to you. If you have pastels, oil pastels, whatever you have, you can use. The first step that we're going to be doing is, if you have a picture you're going to use or a magazine, start by trying to cut out as close as you can around the head. And if there are hands in the picture, I recommend cutting those out as well. It'll make the picture look a little bit nicer and seamless at the end. Once you cut them out, go ahead and glue them down onto your paper. Once you've glued them down, what I do is I'm going to draw out a body. Now, the way that I did mine was I found a painting I liked online for the picture of me, and I basically just found a king, and I put my paper up to it and kind of sketched out what the king's pose was. For the magazine picture I did, I found a similar person that was turning around just so I could get an idea of what I wanted the body to look at. And for the last one, I tried to mimic as best I could the Adele Bloch-Bauer painting. Now, once you have the body drawn out for your person, you can add different things in the background, and then it's time to start adding patterns. You can do the roller pattern like I showed, but I didn't really want to do the rolling. I did use patterns off of the paper, but I wanted to pick out patterns I wanted to use. It's up to you. If you can't decide, then feel free to use a dice and pick out your 5 different patterns that way. Once you have your patterns all over your entire paper, I used a black marker to go back and outline everything, it makes everything stand out a lot better, and I can get rid of all the little pencil marks that I don't want on my paper anymore. And then it's time to start adding color. Remember, when you're coloring, it is not a race. Take your time, just relax, go nice and cool and smooth. That way we can just have a really nice art piece at the end. The faster you go, the more likely you are to make mistakes. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put these on these really fast speed for you. That way you can kind of see how long it took. Each one of these took me between 33 and 48 minutes to just color, and these are smaller pictures. These are about half the size of our regular 9x12s. So take your time, try to have fun with it, and enjoy the process of making the art. Once you add your color, then your artwork is done, and feel free to please share it. Share it with me, share it with the world, and I hope to see you guys back.